In a Wired article published last month, Marisha Ray said, "We're all getting old. As we expand into new areas, we're also trying to nurture a new generation of people to handle it all, and eventually succeed us and carry what we've created forward." So is this the beginning of the end for Critical Role as we know it? If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Luna and I am just a little obsessed with Critical Role, and today I want to share my thoughts and predictions for the future of our favourite nerdy-ass voice actors. This is all just speculation and just my opinion, so please keep that in mind. First, a very brief history lesson. Critical Role has grown in leaps and bounds since it first started airing in 2015 on the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel. The show very quickly became popular and cemented itself as a lauded example of D&D actual plays. The combination of watching a close friendship group play together along with the cast's voice acting skills really created something magical which resonated with fans. Whilst there certainly were other D&D actual plays at the time, the streaming landscape was very different in 2015 and there were nowhere near as many shows as there are nowadays. In 2019, Critical Role left Geek and Sundry to strike out as an independent company, and since then has hit a number of huge milestones, including being the most funded film and TV project on Kickstarter with $11.3 million pledged for the Vox Machina animated series, as well as being one of the top earning channels on Twitch, making around $3 million USD per year, as per some leaked documents from Twitch. They have over 2 million subscribers on YouTube and thousands of people tuning in each week. They've published books with Wizards of the Coast, launched their own publishing firm, Darrington Press, and raised over $2 million with their charity, the Critical Role Foundation. Things have changed quite a bit since the early days of Critical Role, and we are going to see more changes to come. The first big one to talk about is their new game system, Daggerheart. Daggerheart was announced in a State of the Press video a few months ago. While we don't have a lot of details about Daggerheart, it is currently being playtested at Gen Con, it's literally happening right now as I'm filming this video, so we should see a lot more about the actual mechanics of the game very soon as people who were at those playtests, start tweeting and talking about them and whatnot. In fact, by the time I release this, after I've edited it, we probably will have already seen some. What I do know so far is that it is not a D20 system, which honestly really surprised me. I predicted that it would be a D20 system just because it's so familiar to everyone who— wait, my cats are in their prime playtime right now. Wait, no. Anyway, what was I saying? I was saying it's not a D20 system like I thought it would be. It's actually a 2D12 system, which is very surprising. A D12 is not really a dice you get to use all that often in D&D. That's about all that I've seen so far, but just as I said, I know more information is coming out. Something that I anticipate the game is going to contain more is social mechanics, as in more social mechanics than D&D has, since a lot of Critical Role is about character interactions, and they've specifically said it is going to focus on character development. So I'm really intrigued to see how they handle that in a gameplay mechanics way. While they haven't said anything yet about using Daggerheart, I'm feeling very confident that they will use that new system for Campaign 4. Feel free to clip that for when I'm wrong to roast me in 2 years' time. But it just seems wild to me that they would develop a game system that they have said is built for both long-term campaigns and character development, the two things that Critical Role is the most well known for, and then just not use it in their show, which is famous for being long-term play with a lot of character development. The first advantage to using their own system is that once they do, they will be able to be a fully independent company. Right now, their flagship show rests on the intellectual property of Wizards of the Coast, which owns Dungeons & Dragons, and while it seems like that relationship has been good and mutually beneficial, Wizards of the Coast has sponsored Critical Role a bunch of times, I'm not surprised that Critical Role would want to disentangle themselves from someone else's IP. Not that I would know anything what that's about. They've already been making moves to do that by renaming a lot of the gods, publishing their own monsters, and reskinning D&D ones, and there's also been speculation that some of the events that we're seeing play out in Campaign 3 are going to be the in-universe explanation for mechanical changes to the game, just like how the Spell Plague was used to explain changes between D&D 4th edition and 5th edition. They might lose some fans who really just want to watch Dungeons & Dragons, but I think if they're smart about putting out lots of how-to-play videos and letting people see the rules set before Campaign 4, then fans would be prepared for a system change. The second advantage of playing their own game system is that they can then go on and sell that game system to their fans. Right now, the show is kind of a giant ad for Dungeons & Dragons, and from a business perspective, it just makes a lot more sense for them to play using their own product and showcase that. Not to mention the critters are already primed to purchase things that the show puts out, which we see demonstrated in the steady flow of merch items dropping like every single week. I cannot keep up with them, there are so many. I think they also have a large enough fan base now that they probably could weather losing some of their audience who maybe just want to see D&D content, but I genuinely think that most fans of the show would be happy to continue watching as long as their faves are still sitting around at the table. However, that brings me to my next prediction for the future of Critical Role: cast changes. Critical Role has always had guests on their show starting very early in Campaign 1. In Campaign 2, they unfortunately had to put a lot of their plans for guests on hold due to the pandemic, but we've started seeing regular guests returning in Campaign 3. We've also seen a lot more new faces in the one-shots and miniseries, including new DMs, Abria Iyengar and Brennan Lee Mulligan. As in, they're new to DMing for Critical Role, not that they're new DMs. Critical Role has been criticized somewhat for its lack of diversity, and it's clear that it's something that the company would like to improve upon. You know, they've been extending the hand to more people of color and marginalized people to sit at the table. While they certainly haven't got everything right, and they have made a lot of missteps in this regard, it does seem like on the whole the cast recognizes their white privilege and the importance of elevating other voices. In that Wired article published last month, Liam said, "There are creators out there with dreams the world would have stomped out just decades ago. We want to give new stories a home, from voices that haven't historically had a platform in this space." Marisha also said, "We want everything we do to be accessible inside and out, from translations, considerations for disability, and lowering ladders for people to uplift the products of their own creativity." One barrier to making these kinds of changes, though, in my opinion, is the fans. Whilst it's, hard to get a read of the entire fan base, there have always been fans online who have expressed dismay at the thought of the main cast changing. I actually ran a poll here on YouTube and on my Twitter, or my ex. And while majority of respondents said that they would be sad but okay with seeing cast changes, around 20% said that they would not be okay with there being cast changes. And here are a few comments. This person says, "If it had more than one campaign, I would be okay, but this main group must have a party together always, even if it isn't the main storyline." It says, "I enjoy the guests, it's always fun to see them, but I cannot lie that I'd be devastated if people left the group because to me, no one else felt like one of the group. I can't say I'd continue watching." This person says, "Every time they split the party, I found that it's not the same. They work really well together, but if they were to change, I wouldn't stop watching, but I don't like it. As much as I love the guests and the EXU stuff, it's a whole different vibe, so I probably just not watch regularly. There's just something about these best friend nerds that's so great. Honestly, I don't know how I would feel about it. It wouldn't feel like the same show if the entire cast changed. The dynamic of the cast is most of why I love the show so much, and it would really depend on how they phased people out and switched it up." And, this sentiment is understandable. For many fans, including myself, we have spent a lot of time watching these players every single week, and I know that for a lot of people, Critical Role was a bright spot in some dark times. It can be like a comfort media for a lot of people, so any changes to that are going to be uncomfortable or in some cases distressing, and it's always sad to see the things that we love change, or at least, I think it's okay if you feel that way. But also, if Critical Role is going to continue to thrive as a business, eventual changes are inevitable. Matt has talked multiple times about passing on the mantle to someone else, stating, "I look forward to passing on my torch to someone deserving." And Laura is quoted as saying, "Yeah, when the sun does start to set on our careers, I'd love to know that these worlds we've made and embodied will have a life of their own after us. I hope Exandria is a place that people go to long after the fact, like Middle-earth. I want to leave Exandria growing and finding life in other people's hearts." Now, I don't think we're going to see the sunset on their careers anytime soon, so we can disengage panic stations. But I do think we are going to see Critical Role expand and grow out of its current format of these 8 nerdy-ass voice actors. I think any changes they make are going to happen slowly. Critical Role seems pretty tuned in to fan sentiment, and I think that they know any big changes would probably be too drastic and risky. I think the first change that we're going to see is them switching to Daggerheart for Campaign 4, for all the reasons that I talked about before. But if we go off of the length of previous campaigns, it's probably still a year, if not 2, away, and that should give them plenty of time for them to playtest Daggerheart and make other content using it to sort of get everybody ready for the change. Then, I think just as we've seen in Campaign 3, we're going to start seeing more and more guest characters. The recent party split that we had with multiple guests is the first time we've had that since Campaign 1. It was also a much longer party split than we had in Campaign 1. I think Campaign 1 it was only like 2 episodes per group. This one we obviously had more guests and like a much longer split. And I see those instances happening more and more frequently in Campaign 4. We might also see other shows like Candela Obscura further highlighting these extra cast members and sort of getting everyone in the fandom familiar and used to them, and then therefore like excited about them potentially joining the main cast. A lot of respondents to my survey also echoed this thought that they would feel more comfortable with a cast change if they sort of did it gradually by introducing, you know, 1 or 2 new cast members rather than doing like a complete overhaul, which yeah, again, I don't think they're going to do that because I think it would be too jarring. And then, I mean, again, this is pure speculation, but I think by campaign 5, we might see some of the cast step back as permanent members, or rather they might move to more of like a rotating cast of players, kind of like how Dimension 20 handles a lot of their production, like how they have their core group that does 1 campaign a year, and then they have these other shorter campaigns with like more of a mixed cast. I do think that all the cast love what they do, but I also think it would be understandable if some of them wanted to step away for a bit, you know, or longer, especially as by campaign 5, they've been doing the show for like over 10 years. That's a pretty long time for anything, and I certainly wouldn't begrudge them wanting to move in a different direction or, you know, having to put more energy into the company. The bigger the company gets, you know, the more some of those roles are going to be demanding, like Marisha being creative director, you know, Travis is the CEO, so they might need to spend like more time on the business side of things, like running the business. I'm also very curious to know though what impact Critical Role moving more into just the general tabletop role-playing game space is going to have on the industry as a whole. Critical Role has brought a lot of new fans into D&D, with many players getting their start by first watching the show, so I'm actually really hopeful that with them creating new games and showcasing them on the channel, more and more people are going to be influenced to try other games instead of just D&D. I mean, I am a D&D diehard, but honestly, it's been a really hard year to be a fan of D&D. Alright, so, as I said at the beginning, all of this is just my opinion. I would love to hear what you think about the future of Critical Role, so please make sure you let me know in the comments. Also, a really big thank you to my patrons. They actually got early access to this video, so if you'd like to support the channel and get behind the scenes content, you can sign up at patreon.com/LuBoffin. Until next time, bye!